afternoon, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Evening Gelda program. Let me tell you something about our guest today. I discovered that she has a little things in common with me. First of all, the love for poetry. Also, she loves nature, especially the sea, like me. And finally, we have the same mother language, Portuguese language. So it's a great pleasure to receive today our guest, Maria Elvira Fernandez Correia. Maria was born in Portugal, but she moved on to Brazil when she was very young. Her free time spent to writing. She was a teacher in language centers and private class too. Actually, at present interested in literature. Then she joined with some groups in social media. She has some poems included in different anthologies. Nature lover, she feels a special attraction to the sea. Well, let's start our interview, dearest. Maria, when and how was poetry present in your life?
Good evening, everyone. Thanks ever so much, Gelda, for inviting me to be on a live with you about poetry. Well, poetry was present in my life a few years ago, and I developed my interest more and more after contact on social media, reading poems and appreciating poets.
Do your poems reflect you?
My poems are part of me, but I say not as a glass rule. They are thoughts that come to my mind and I put them on paper. Inspiration comes from reading, communities prompts, a phrase that I listen to, words, nature, etc.
In your opinion, is poetry the most beautiful way to expand universal literature?
Of course, poetry is the most beautiful way to expand universal literature. All of us are fond of poetry. Some more, others less. It does not matter the style of the poetry. It may be structured or freestyle, romantic or dark one. Just enjoy poetry.
Which poetic style do you prefer to write?
I prefer to write freestyle, although I think structured poetry is most beautiful because of the rhythm and meter. But it's not that easy to write structured poetry. you have to be an expertise in the field.
Cite an ancient and a contemporary poet who inspires you the most in the construction of your poetry.
Well, I do not have any poet as a model, but I like to read old poets like Gibran Khalil Gibran because of her message on his poetry. And Emily Dickinson too. Confined in a home, she wrote her poems for a long time. About contemporary poets, I am a fan of Maya Angelou. Maya Angelou was a talented poet, but not only a poet, but she worked in different fields, such as journalist, professor, defense of civil rights activist, actress, singer, and so on. She had a steady voice in poetry. She used rhythm and metaphors on her writings.
With poets from platforms and social media, do you usually follow their writings?
I follow many poets on social media, and day after day the number is increasing. I confess that I like to appreciate their writings very much.
Tell us, does a poet need to have academic education, or is it possible to write empirically?
Academic education is important to write poetry, but it's not a measure to any writing. All of us can write poetry, since poetry is related to feelings, what we have on our hearts, and we put them on paper. But I would like to say that academic education helps us to polish our writings.
What advice would you like to give to those who are starting in the poetry field?
Well, it's difficult to give an advice to anyone who is a beginner or like to write poetry. But I say that reading a lot of poems from different writers will be helpful to polish your writing. It can give direction in your field of writing too.
where do you usually look for inspiration to write your poems?
My inspiration to write poetry comes from reading poems on books or social media, and phrases in general, nature, moments of sadness and happiness.
If you don't mind, can you recite a poem of yours for all of us now?
I would like to read two short poems of mine. The first one, journey of mine not goes fast, walking step by step on, I haste to find my dreams. You be lights on your own life. Keep your candle always ignite, so that it can shine along the ambience you win and illuminate not only your path, but anyone else surrounding. Thanks again, Gelda, for the invite. Happy week ahead. Bye.
Dear Elsie Maria, thank you very much for your brilliant presence today. Guys, hope to see you in the next Sunday, okay? Bye-bye to everyone.